All right, and we're live. This is the inaugural episode of the Beyond the Finish Line podcast. It is a working title. We're still trying to work out exactly what we want to do with this thing, but we were sick of talking about it, so we just thought we'd record an episode and jump in. My name's Matt. I'm with my lovely and talented co-host Georgia. How you doing, Georgia?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Very well, very well. Um, I think for this first episode, it'd be cool if we just sort of explain the genesis of the idea and just sort of like what we think we want to do with the podcast. We're still not 100% sure. We know there's something here. We just haven't quite worked it out, and we're, just sort of sick of talking about it.
Exactly. I think it's always good to do things on the fly sometimes.
Yeah, I think I recently listened to Ned Brockman's podcast with
I love
Ollie.
Ned. Yeah.
Can't remember his last name. And he said you learn so much more by doing stuff rather than being like, oh, if we have the perfect name and the perfect logo and the perfect studio setup, etc. Like he's like, if you just get in and get stuck in, you'll learn 10 times more.
Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah,
I think that applies to running as well, though, right?
I think it
Or
applies
any
to
kind of
everything,
endurance
just about
sport.
everything in life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that. I've always done that. I just thought that Ned happened to put it in quite a concise way as he normally does, a man of few words. So
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah, so we just sort of pulled the pin on it and decided we'd get stuck in. So let's just talk about sort of how the idea came about, because it was actually, I'd say it was more your idea than my idea.
I think we had chatted about doing something similar, and then you were kind of like, "Would you do it with me?" And I was like, "Wait, are you joking or are you serious?"
Mm,
And yeah, I think we both have fresh, different perspectives. You know, you have a coaching endurance sport background, and I have a new to the sport kind of background and a different perspective.
yeah, and I think the the way we sort of thought about it was, yes, I've got the coaching background, but I don't think about it from a newer athlete perspective, or how like the emotions come into it, how social media comes into it, how different uh, social constructs, I guess, come into it, like through run clubs and like
Yeah, yeah,
opinions on social media, all those sort of things. And that's sort of where you excel. So I think the two of us together, coming from different angles, it'll give a unique take that I don't think people will have side by side yet, at least that I
no,
haven't seen.
yeah, exactly. I think, as you said, I've got that perspective of the next gen of runners. I guess all of those, that running boom that's still happening at the moment and
Mm.
has happened since COVID. And I think that's where I kind of come into play, is that I have that perspective of someone who is really fresh to the sport and is still learning every single day.
Yeah, for sure. And it might be a good time whether we just sort of go through stories, how we got into the endurance space. You're obviously more running background. I'm more triathlete background,
Yeah.
but let's jump in with you. So when did you start running?
I am a bit like a lot of people at the moment. I started running in the second lockdown. Here in Sydney, we had quite strict barriers around what we could and couldn't do. We lived really close at the time to Centennial Park in Sydney, and so our radius consisted of the park and home pretty much. And
Mm-hmm.
so every day, my work would set up a 1 hour mandatory go for a walk kind of thing.
Oh,
And
that's
I
cool.
could, yeah, it was really cool. My boss was like, look, you have to go and get 10,000 steps every day. I don't want you guys sitting around at home. Go and enjoy being outside. This is a unique time where, you know, we would never normally be in this situation. So why not make the most of it? And I was finding that I couldn't quite get my 1 hour in with a walk around Centennial and home again. And yeah, Nick, my husband, had said to me at the time, I think I'm going to get into running. Do you want to try with me? And I was like, I can't even run around the block. And I remember I'd been at a boxing class that was outdoors, of course, and they'd instructed us to run around the oval. And I literally couldn't get around the oval. And Nick had said to me, he was like, you can do it. Just keep pushing. Let's get to the next goal post. Let's get to the next fence line. And he sat with me the entire time. And I think it was a kilometer around this oval. And I still remember thinking how hard that was. And I was like, oh no, my asthma, I can't do this. It's so hard. And that classic excuse, oh, I'm going to die if I try and run. But at the time, he's like, it's okay. Like, let's just try again tomorrow. And I tried to run around the block. And then the next big goal was kind of run one lap of Centennial. And anyone who's from Sydney would know Centennial is 3.68 kilometers. And so that was the goal. The goal was just to run around Centennial, and it was a small step, and I wanted to be able to run Centennial without stopping. And we ended up on that one day that we set out to do it. Nick ran side by side with me. We were running a 7:15 pace, and I ended up getting 4Ks nonstop. And I remember the feeling of just being like, holy crap, I just did that, which is really cool. And then, from there, I just kind of set myself little goals. And that's kind of my beginning, I guess.
And was that your, like, when you ran that 4K hooked, like never looked back, or?
Yeah. 4K hooked. And then a friend of mine had sent me a link to this challenge that was run whatever you wanted, basically to raise money for autism. And that is a charity that's close to mine and Nick's heart. So I decided that the goal was 10K. And to me, I still remember thinking that is such a long way, such a long way to run. All my friends and family knew that was a big deal for me. And so, I set out to run 10Ks around Centennial, and I had 3 friends, including Nick, come, and they were my pacers.
You mean just so you don't quit?
So literally, so I didn't quit because I wanted to do it without stopping. I was like, we're going to run 10Ks, no stopping. And
every pacer had a lap? Was that how it worked, or?
Everyone just ran. I had 3 pacers running with me.
Yeah, okay.
So we were doing, I think it was a 6:30 pace, and I wanted to be able to do 10K. And I remember the last lap, I was feeling so good. I was like, let's push for 3 laps, which ended up being about 11K or something. And it was actually quite funny. My entire family and friends came. I think there was probably 15 or 16 people who turned up. They had signs. It was crazy. And there was a man in the park, and he said, oh, how far? Because it said "Run, Georgia, run" on it. And he's going, how far is she running? Probably thinking I was running like 2 marathons back to back. And my sister-in-law was like, she's running 10K. Like, it's this huge deal. So, yeah.
And how'd the family react? Was everyone super supportive in terms of when you were like, I think I'm a runner now?
Yeah, it's so funny because I've never been athletic, like, at all. And so I think I did the odd sport in school, netball. I was always wing defense because I wasn't very fast. And then I signed up for a half marathon, which is the Blackmores Sydney half marathon at the time. And I remember my family just being so incredibly supportive, just like, wow, you've got this. I raised all this money for Beyond Blue, and because I honestly genuinely think people were donating to try and push me along to be like, you can do it, like, please don't give up. And I did that, and then my next goal was a marathon, and raised a bunch of money for another charity. And there's a funny video of my dad as I'm running, I think it was 39K, and my dad goes, I really wasn't sure she was going to be able to do it, but here she is doing it. So
can relate.
Definitely. Yeah, look, I have the most supportive family. I couldn't ask for a better support system, but I think they were genuinely really shocked that I actually did it. My brothers had tears in their eyes, and it's really cool. So
it's interesting how, because everyone can run to some capacity.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting as the distance gets further and further, people exclude themselves from it. Like, I could never run a 10K. I could never run a half. I could never run a full. And you're like, well, if you can run 100 meters, you can run 2. And then if you run 2, you can run 5, and you can run a K. Like, it's just time, and it's the same thing. It's a learned skill.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. It is a learned skill. Obviously, if you are able to run, I think you can run. As you said, it is a lot of just breaking it down into smaller goals. And that was always my journey, was just break it down into smaller goals. And then you hit the goal and then you get excited because you've hit that goal. Whereas I think if you were to be like, I'm going to go and run a marathon tomorrow, you like, oh, I can't do that. You've always got to break it down into smaller goals. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? Is that they think they just have to go out and run 10K and they don't have these smaller goals. Whereas if they do the smaller goals, it's more achievable.
Yeah, I was literally just talking to a client yesterday, and she actually stopped running with me because she felt like the goals were so far away. And then she came back, she messaged me and she was like, oh, I really want to do this marathon. And it's like, I just don't think I can do it. And then I broke it down. I was like, all of the little steps that we do in training. So when you run your first 10K, when you do your 12, your 15, your 20, they're all the mental battles that you win to build the confidence to do the next run that's further. And when I broke it down to her like that, she was like, oh, I never thought about it like that, as like a step-by-step process. I thought it was just, we trained a lot, got fit, and then I went out and did it. I was like, no, like every week you are building momentum or putting a brick in the wall to show that, hey, I can go a little bit further, I can go a little bit further.
Oh, and I think that is where a lot of people get themselves unstuck with running, is that they go out and they run 5K as hard as they possibly can, and then they give up.
Yeah.
And
they're like, how could I couldn't do another 200 meters, let alone another 37 kilometers.
Totally. And I think, definitely where people freak themselves out in thinking that they have to just do a marathon. And I think that's also been lost in translation, is that, we have forgotten that a marathon is really far and you have to train for that.
The bloke who bloody invented marathon died. That's why I got its name.
I didn't know that.
Have you heard the Greek story? The fella, I can't remember if his name was Marathon or he ran to Marathon, like the city of Marathon, and he had to deliver a message about a war, about a battle coming, and after he delivered the message, he died, and then that's what it was named after.
Oh my gosh, tragic. That is, I did not know that. It's so interesting. Because I haven't come from a running background, I don't know a lot of the origin stories of running and the history and stuff. And it is interesting finding that stuff out all the time.
But I actually think that's an advantage, because I'm the same in triathlon, right? Like I found triathlon quite late in life, and I did the same with Ironman, and there'll be people like, they'll be like, do you know who that was? I'll be at a race and I'll be talking to someone and they'll be like, nah, and they'll be like, that bloke won Kona 4 times. I'll be like, no idea.
Cool.
No clue. He was just a nice guy. Just had a chat to him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But
so
I think, as you said, like you got into triathlons and Ironman quite late in life. Tell me about, I don't actually know how you got into it. Tell me.
Okay. So mine's a bit of a full-on story, I guess. It's not as happy as go lucky as yours. As a kid, really good athlete, or decent athlete. Represented like state and national level for a few different sports, but was never like good enough to be the guy. Sort of had a choice. It was like, go work or continue to pursue sports. Didn't think I was going to get anywhere with sports. Went and became a chef.
A chef? I did not pick you for a chef.
Yep. I was a chef. So I did my apprenticeship at Aria in Sydney. And, with Matt Moran, little name drop. And did my apprenticeship there. Then went to the UK because I was like, I'm going to go work for Gordon Ramsay. Went and did that.
Wait, actually worked for Gordon Ramsay or went to the UK?
Both. So worked at restaurant
Just
Gordon
drop that
Ramsay.
in a conversation and just pretend like I didn't hear it. You worked for Gordon. That's really cool.
Yeah, restaurant Gordon Ramsay on Royal Hospital Road. Spent some time there. Spent some time
I've been to that restaurant.
Yeah, it's a good restaurant. Went out. I was working in Oxford for most of it at Raymond Blanc's restaurant, which is like a 2 Michelin star. Anyway, a big culture in kitchens, especially really high level kitchens, it's very abusive, right? Like it's just work, minimum wage, no overtime, or you work overtime, but you don't get paid overtime, all that sort of crap. And it's a very addiction-based job, because the majority of people who are in those jobs, weirdly enough, if they were not cooking, they would probably be phenomenal endurance athletes.
Yeah.
And cocaine is relatively cheap in the UK, so
Mm.
it's relatively easy to get as well. So I actually didn't I was thinking about this today because I knew we'd probably talk about it, and I was like, I actually didn't realize I was a drug addict for probably 2 years after being an addict,
Yeah.
um, because it was just normal. Like, everyone was doing drugs all the time. Like, that was just like, you walked into work.
Especially in
That was,
kitchens. Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard that.
it was just the norm. And then you would drink if you take some if you do a bump at 8 or 9 o'clock at night to get free dinner service. What do you do to go to bed? You drink. So it's just like this
Yeah.
horrendous cycle. Anyway, decided after a few years of that, I was just like looking at myself in the mirror. I'd been homeless at this point, just like through drug. Like, it was just a wild whole roller coaster. With conversation for another day, or the intricate stuff of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna like get sober and sort my life out. So I did that. Got home, just went cold turkey on everything. No drinking,
Oh.
no drugs, no nothing. Um, Went back to like got back into cooking, all that sort of stuff. And then
Did you find it hard, I guess, to go back to cooking, knowing that that could have been a trigger for your addiction?
yeah, it didn't last long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just cooked enough till I had enough money to
Yeah.
sort of to be able to take a step back, I guess. Um, but it was yeah, you had to have your wits about you, basically. Like, everyone is I think just about every chef has an addiction of some variety, whether it's gambling, drinking, drugs, whatever it is. So you like, if you have a hyper addictive personality, you have a tendency to get addicted to things without realizing. So
Yeah.
whether that is work, whether that is whatever, running, for an example.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, anyway, so yeah, like you're saying, it is very triggering. So you've got to be like red alert all the time. Didn't last long. Um, got out of cooking altogether. Started my own business, which was like a healthy ready-made meal business. So
Yeah.
I was like, at this point, I was getting into fitness. I was like studying nutrition, and I was like, oh, like I could probably combine this new passion I have, which is health and fitness, with something I'm good at, cooking. Built that up, sold that at the end of this. When was that? September 23. We sold that.
Last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
End of last year.
Wait.
Yeah.
No, September 22. Excuse me. Got my years mixed up. Yeah, September 2022. Sold that, and then I was like, cool, what am I going to do? About 2 months or 3 months prior to COVID, me and all the boys were at a CrossFit gym, and we're watching the Nick Bear Ironman series on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we all
I've heard
said,
of it.
"Hey, we're gonna do an Ironman." Um, that we all just said it like this guy's doing it. We were frothing him at the time, just absolutely loving him. And COVID hit. We all said it, but no one really knew what it
What it
was. Like,
meant. Yeah.
swim, bike, run, but like the distances didn't mean anything to us. Like, we're all CrossFit guys, so like the longest we'd probably run is about 800 meters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then COVID hit, and everyone kind of went their own way. Like, some people went into business, some people went and had kids. Like, one of our mates, Joel, he's still traveling around Australia. He hasn't come home yet. He's just off driving with his family. And everyone just disappeared. So then, fast forward, sold my business, and I was like, I still want to do it. Like, the thought never left my head. So
Yeah.
from September 22 to December 22, I taught myself how to swim, how to ride, how to run, and I did an Ironman in December of that year.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah,
That's
and
insane. I can't imagine even just my thought process is that you even just training for a marathon in that time, let alone a
What I
marathon.
did was ridiculously stupid. Like
Did
10
you
out
get
of 10
injured?
do no.
Interesting. Do not
Yeah.
condone.
Definitely do as I say, not as I do. Um, but a bit of a if anyone's like followed me on Instagram previously, they would know that battle with mental health, have that whole thing going on, dealing dealing with it before the drugs, but drugs obviously didn't help. Um,
Yep.
I was in such a bad mental health state that I'd made a deal, and this probably helped motivate me to get through the Ironman on such short notice. I was in such a bad way mentally, I decided that if I finished the Ironman, I deserved to live, and if I didn't, was going to end my life. That was like my sort of line in the sand moment.
Yeah.
Um, so it was it was different, obviously, because like not many people put that sort of extreme pressure on themselves. But
Yeah, that's a lot. But I guess
yeah,
you were probably searching for some sort of reason,
something,
right?
yeah,
Something.
something. I
Yeah.
was just so lost, and as there's a there was like a weird pivotal moment. I know my story's going on for a little bit, but
No,
I'll wrap it up.
not at all.
Um, Halfway through the bike, I got a flat. Oh, we run tubeless tires. So there's no like your bike at home probably has a tube in it. We don't have tubes in race bikes. And there's a tape on the inside called rim tape. The rim tape ripped, which means like the tire won't inflate. And it's not a usual thing that a bike mechanic will carry with them. So I had to sit on the side of the road for like an hour to an hour and a half in Western Australia, middle of the day, scorching hot. But bike mechanic pulls up and he goes, I don't know if I've got enough. Like, if you don't have enough rim tape, your day's over. Like, you're chucking in the ute and we'll take you back to like the tent. And I was like, okay, so if he doesn't have enough rim tape, like that's it, day's over. You
That's my
know,
sign.
gonna go spend the next couple of days in WA with Sam, just like in my partner Sam, just enjoy that, and then like that'll be it. Um,
Yeah.
he had enough rim tape by like millimeters. He was like, dude, I don't know if this is going to hold, but uh, it's enough to get the tire inflated. And after that moment, when he inflated the tire and I started riding off, I was like, oh, it's done. Like, even if I have to jog the bike back in, like if I get a flat tire in 10Ks and I got to run it in, like
Yeah.
it's fine, no worries. Um, and just from that moment, I was like, weight off my shoulders. I'm like, it's this is what I do now. I'm my hyper addictive personality found its
You,
thing.
yeah, you found, yeah. Do you think that when that tape fit, even though, and you knew you were like, this is the smallest amount and this is not supposed to fit, but it fit. Do you think that was a moment where you just went, I'm meant to be here? Like, I've found my thing now and I need to stay. Like, I can't.
Yeah, I really think it was. I don't do the whole higher power
Yeah.
search for meaning and things, but I do think like there was something to it where it was just yeah, like this is meant to be my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then since then, just absolutely obsessed by everything endurance. Like I I have an endurance coaching business. I race Ironman. I'm trying to race Ironman at a higher level. I'm trying to qualify for Kona. Make content around endurance. Like that's just my whole personality now.
Yeah. It's your brand now. And I think
Legit, yeah.
touching back on, you mentioned before that you speak a lot on social media about mental health and training, and you are very open with your following about you're not having a good day and sorry you haven't been online for a few days, but this is what's happening. And I think that's so important, and well, just so important to see just a male out there who's actually talking about it, because as we know, men's mental health is one of the biggest silent killers here in Australia. And I think what you're doing in being so open with your following, even if, as I've heard you say before, even if one person sees that day and that helps them, that is so important.
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing that it's interesting, right? Coming from a man's perspective, like my dad is cattle farmer, old school. Like I've seen him cry once, and it was at
Yeah.
his sister's funeral. And even then, he was like had it together, like still very stoic, but you could tell he was like holding back tears.
Yeah, that
Um,
classic men don't cry, right? Suck
yeah,
it
like
up, be a man.
100%. And even the first, this is like a little behind the curtain. Even the first time, like I told my parents that I was like dealing with suicidal thoughts, and this dad's like, "I'm gonna go walk the dog. Mum's gonna talk to you." Like
Yeah.
he just doesn't know how to deal with emotion. So I was very much like once I sort of felt like I had a somewhat grasp on it, like it's always a never-ending battle. Um, I think it's important that like I talk about it, even if it like say like I always put that in my head. I'm like, if it changes one person, if one person just changes the way they think about something because of me and putting
Yeah,
myself in an uncomfortable position, like that's okay, like that's a win. So
definitely.
I think it's I some people don't like it, and to those people I just say unfollow. But I think it's cool
Yeah, and I guess those people, it might just touch too close to home for them,
for sure.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
It is a
I don't put
slippery
any
subject.
I don't put any negativity towards them. I'm just like, but like I'm not going to stop talking about it because it makes someone uncomfortable.
No, definitely not. And you should
Mm,
never have to do that. As you said,
mm,
they can definitely choose to unfollow you if that's something that, makes them uncomfortable or, but really at the end of the day, you're saying it, putting yourself in an uncomfortable position to try and help others and
mm.
give your, I guess, platform a bit of extra meaning.
Yeah, and I think it's yeah, it's a weird way to liken it, but I think battle with mental health is like the ultimate endurance event because it never lets up. Like you deal with it every
No,
single day, and you're just
definitely.
constantly going
Yeah, and I
against it.
think that's not something I would normally talk about online, not by choice. I don't purposely not talk about it, but running has immensely helped my mental health. I
Mhm.
mean, if I'm not having a good day, I go for a run, or my husband Nick will say, "Do you need to go for a run today?" Or and as a teenager, I really struggled with mental health. I was doing, I don't know if you guys have it up there, but I was doing like Headspace and stuff like
Yep.
that from oh gosh, year 7 through to year 12, and struggled immensely with anxiety and depression. I mean, I'm very grateful that I was never in a position where I had those like suicidal thoughts or anything, but it was a lot of just, I don't feel like myself and I can't understand why, and I don't know how to put my finger on it, but I just don't
Mhm.
feel happy. And
Yeah.
I'm very lucky in that my mental health has never been really severe. It's always just been there. And like you said,
Mhm.
it's a marathon. It is. Every day you make choices to help yourself, I don't have too much coffee because it gives me too much anxiety, or I make sure I go out exercising. And I think that is why sometimes if I get sick, and you would probably understand this, when I'm unwell or injured, you're always like, dude, take a couple of weeks off. You need to rest. And I'm like, but I can't. I need to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to learn how to go for a walk instead of go for a 10K run.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think I should, as you said, you like to put it out there so it could help someone. And maybe that's something I need to do as well, is talk about it more.
Yeah. I would say tread with caution because it sometimes when you're just like talking, like as you know, talking to a phone, sometimes you just go on rants and things, and like sometimes it's like I don't know. I feel like sometimes it can make things worse if you're not. I normally talk about something once I've worked something out. So if there's a reason I'm down at a particular time,
Yeah.
and
You wait till you're kind of
I've
over the
solved
hill.
that problem, and
Yeah.
then I'll talk about it. I feel like if I've done it previously where I've been quick to pull the trigger and just be like, hey, I'm feeling shit, don't really know what's going on, and then it can spiral like literally one DM or one comment for someone who's not trying to be negative, but just where your headspace is at that time
Yeah.
can just fuck shit up.
I guess probably could also attract that someone else who's in the same headspace as you, and then you are both then in that headspace together, and
For
that can
sure.
kind of then send you on that spiral, like you said.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's just one of the rules I have is like I'll be fully transparent after I've solved my problem.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good. It's a good boundary to put in place for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Um cool. So that was like a cool little intro to us. Um I think
Maybe, do you know what though?
hmm?
I feel like, just to quickly go back on that, I
Go
feel
for
like
it.
we should say how we met each other
Oh
because I
yeah,
think
sure.
that's such a random thing that happened, and
Hmm.
here we are, like recording a podcast together. So I think that, I remember I saw you on a brand's Instagram. I remember being
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy's doing cool things. I knew nothing about it. I feel like I know so much more about it now because of you. But how
Yeah, it
did
was all I
you come
post
across
about.
me?
Exact same. So Aid Station, shout out Aid Station.
Oh,
We
yes,
love
thank
Aid
you so
Station.
much. We love you.
um, yeah, I saw you on Aid Station. I think you were in the second run of athletes that they put on, first or second.
I can't remember, to be
Yeah,
honest. I've been with them probably, I think, about a year.
yeah,
Maybe just, I
um,
think they were fueling me for Sydney Marathon, which was September 23.
yeah. So I think that was the. I'll get it wrong. Anyway, you were the first and I was the second, or I was the first and you were the second run. However, it worked out. And I was like sort of contemplating starting coaching. Well, I was coaching at the time, but I didn't really have a business. And same as you, like I was like, oh, like it's cool to see a creator that isn't a professional athlete making
Yeah,
content. Um, I was probably a year or so further along in my endurance journey than you,
yeah,
and it was just interesting. And then I actually remember the first time I messaged you because I saw you worked in marketing,
yeah,
same as
that's right. And you were asking me questions about your business.
yeah, because I come from like I work in marketing as well, but my marketing I work with like much larger companies in terms of like we're talking about how to dial in CRMs and clacks and
Yeah.
things like that. Like it's not I don't do social media. Um, so I was messaging you, and I was like, and you kind of snubbed me because I was like, oh, what do you think about this? And you I reckon if you went back, I was like, what do you reckon about this? You're like, yeah, I guess, like maybe.
I think I was like, oh, no. But then, yeah, I do remember it actually, now that you say
I,
that.
I was
You
keeping my
probably caught me on a bad day.
but I was keeping my cards close to my chest because I didn't say, hey, what would you say yes or no to this proposal? I just sort of said like, hey, what do you think about someone coaching you for free in terms of like an influencer deal for content?
Yeah, yeah,
And,
that's right.
and you're like, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe. And then I think I hit you back. It might have been like, it would have been. When did you start? When did we start working together?
End of last year, I think.
And yeah, so nearly a year.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so it must have been just after Sydney.
definitely. I think you had messaged me to be like, do you want to work together? And I was a bit like, I'm confused. How does this help you?
Yeah, yeah. I was just trying to remember the dates, but anyway, yeah, I messaged you and I was just like, I re-propositioned it to you, and you like gave me the same sort of answer. Like, yeah, there's probably some legs to it, blah blah. Blah. And I said, but what about for you? And you're like, oh, yeah, actually, like let's try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was like, I was like, what? I'm confused. I'm a bit, I try my hardest, I'm so new to this stuff that, when you do this kind of social media stuff, you do start creating your own personal brand, and then you become
Mm.
your own marketing manager and then your own personal manager. And I was just like, oh, yeah, I'm so new to this brand deal stuff. But I think it was, yeah, from then you just kind of made me feel so much better. You're like, no, like it'll be cool. We'll just do this and I'll set you up and we'll get you running some more marathons. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think because it made it easier for me too, because you were so vocal with everything you posted, I was like, oh well, there's heaps of like just the first thing I said you was like, there's so much low hanging fruit, so many easy wins we can get,
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to tell everyone, like, from when we started working together to Sydney was how many months?
9,
9,
but
and yeah.
it was 7 to Gold Coast. So when
Mhm.
you had kind of spoke to me, I'd said, oh, my next race is going to be Gold Coast. And I just wanted to beat my old time. And so for those listening at home, I ran Sydney Marathon, which is my first marathon, in 4 hours and 47 minutes. And then when you had spoke to me, I was planning on running Gold Coast. I think I just bought my ticket to Gold Coast.
Yeah, you had, yep.
And I wasn't going to run Sydney again. And yeah, from there, that was 7 months, I think, from January. I was like, let's get started. And you'd said, oh, let's just wait a little bit. We'll start soon.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Gold Coast was the big race.
Yeah. And you performed awesome for 36 kilometers.
I think, that's generous. I think 33 is probably where I hit the wall. And
yeah, that's probably about right.
It was a couple of different factors, which maybe that's something we should get into on another day.
Yeah, I think, intra-race nutrition and central nervous system fatigue is definitely something we can talk about.
Definitely. We've got some good examples there of what not to do. But
yeah.
hey, I still got my PB.
Yeah, you did. Well, in Sydney, you beat it again. So just a couple of weeks later, or a couple of months later,
Yeah.
you improved again. So that's something we can talk about in goal setting. Could be a future episode. Like I said at the start of the episode, guys, like, we're still sort of working out exactly what the structure is going to be. But I think from what Georgia and I have sort of said offline, there are going to be some cool stories like this, personal stories, sort of our journey as well. Like, Georgia is trying to progress in her marathons, and we're not sure exactly how fast she's going to go. I think she could qualify for a Boston or a New York over time, but we'll wait and see. I'm trying to get to Kona in the Ironman, so there'll be some personal stuff. But then we also want to bring like a coach's corner, a advice. I'm not really sure exactly how we're going to word that, but
yeah,
something,
I think
some valuable stuff to help
advice,
you guys.
some social advice. I'm very open about socials, and I'm happy to help anyone who wants to get into it. So I think there'll definitely be some info for you guys if you want to start doing what we do and work with brands and what to say and how to email and how to do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's just a sort of a good format where we're gonna talk about us and our journey, and that's sort of gonna organically roll into different topics, and we'll do our best to provide as much value for you guys as possible.
Can't wait. I'm so excited. It's going to be so great.
Yeah, I'm excited. We weren't really sure how this episode was gonna go. This was kind of our testing. We were going to be like, hey, we'll record it, and if it's shit, we're going to delete it and not tell everyone. Not tell anyone, excuse me.
It's like a pilot episode, right? We'll see how it 100%. Goes.
Yeah. But look, so I've got another podcast that's all about triathlon. It's like a full-on triathlon nerd out. A good barometer is if you look down at I've got a little clock underneath me. If you look down and 30, 40, 50 minutes has gone through really, really quick, it's normally a pretty good sign. And we're at 38 minutes, 50 seconds right there. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to try and talk Georgia into recording every Monday, but we'll see how that goes.
See how we go. Look forward to it. I can't wait to share some more stories and chat to you about your stuff as well as mine.
Yeah, cool. All right, Georgia, we'll call it a show there. First show in the books. How good?
Nice. Well done. Go us.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.